Soulmate wrote, a letter 7 years Oxoat finally. Arrive to wait, pause for a second, something quiet, something almost invisible has just shifted, and you might not feel it yet, but it's already happening. Somewhere, maybe miles away from you, maybe in a city you haven't been to in years, your person just heard your name leave someone else's mouth. And it didn't land the way they expected it to. It didn't bounce off them like a passing comment. It didn't fade into the noise of the evening around them. It stayed. It sat right there in the center of their chest, heavier than they wanted to admit. They weren't prepared for that. They weren't prepared for someone else to say something honest about you in front of them without warning. And the strange part is, the words weren't even dramatic, they weren't loud, they weren't pointed, but somehow, those few simple sentences carried more weight than anything your person had let themselves feel in a long time. If this message speaks to your heart, comment, I receive this love, like the video, and subscribe for more. Now let me take you into the room where this happened, because the setting matters. It was one of those ordinary nights, nothing special on paper. Your person was out with a small group, maybe 2 or 3 people, maybe more. The kind of gathering that doesn't ask anything of you. The lights were low, the music was soft, drinks were being passed around, and conversation was drifting the way conversation drifts when no one is really trying to say anything important. It was supposed to be easy. It was supposed to be the kind of night where they didn't have to think too much. That's what they wanted. That's why they came, to not think, to not feel, to let the noise of other people fill in the silence they've been carrying around inside them, for longer than they're willing to admit. And then, somewhere between one sip and the next, your name came up, not from them, from someone else, someone who didn't know they were stepping into something delicate, someone who didn't realize that the name they were casually saying out loud was the same name your person had been quietly avoiding inside their own head for weeks, maybe months. Stay with this, because there's a deeper emotional layer here. The third person, whoever they were, a friend, a cousin, someone from their past who happened to know you too, said something simple, something true. Maybe it was, you know, she really did love you, I don't think you understood how much. Or maybe it was, I always thought you two were the real thing. What happened? Or maybe it was even quieter than that. Maybe it was, she wasn't like the others. You know that, right? Whatever the exact words were, they hit a place your person had been guarding for a long time, a place they had built walls around, a place they had told themselves was sealed off and handled. It wasn't sealed off. It never was. And here's where the first shift happened. Small, almost invisible to anyone watching. Your person didn't say anything back. They didn't argue. They didn't defend themselves. They didn't laugh it off the way they usually would. They just went quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't look like much from the outside, but inside, something was unraveling. Something they thought they had folded up neatly and put away. They reached for their drink, a little sooner than they needed to. They took a longer sip than the moment called for. And the conversation around them kept moving. But they weren't in it anymore. Not really. This is where understanding slowly begins. Because in that pocket of silence, while everyone else kept talking, your person was already drifting somewhere else. Somewhere they hadn't let themselves go in a long time. A memory surfaced. Not a big one, not a dramatic one, just a small one. The kind of memory you don't realize you've been holding on to until it walks right back into the room. Maybe it was the way you laughed at something they said once. Maybe it was a specific morning, a specific look you gave them, when you thought they weren't paying attention. Maybe it was a small thing you did that nobody else noticed, but they did, and they never told you they did. That memory came back, uninvited, unprepared, and they felt it. They felt it in their chest, the way you feel something you've been pretending not to miss. Something quiet, something that's been waiting patiently for the right moment to remind them. It's still there. What happens next isn't loud. But it changes everything. Your person started drinking a little more, not heavily, not in a way that anyone around them would call concerning. Just enough to dull whatever was rising up inside them, just enough to make it easier to stay in their seat and keep nodding along to whatever conversation was happening. But underneath that, their mind was somewhere else entirely. Their mind was with you, and the thoughts started coming the way thoughts come when you don't want them to. Slow at first. Then a little faster. Why did hearing her name like that hit me so hard? Why am I still thinking about this? Maybe I let go too quickly. They tried to push it away. They tried to laugh louder at the next joke. They tried to be more present in the room, but the room had already changed for them. It didn't feel the same anymore. The night that was supposed to be easy had quietly become heavy, and they didn't fully understand why. But you do, and so do I. Because what that third person said wasn't really new information. It wasn't something your person didn't already know somewhere deep down. It was just the first time someone said it out loud in front of them. And there's something about hearing a truth from someone else's mouth that makes it impossible to keep hiding from yourself. When you're the only one who knows something, you can pretend you don't know it. But the moment another person speaks it into the air between you, it becomes real. In a way it never was before. That's what happened to your person tonight. And this is where things quietly began to shift. Somewhere in the middle of the evening, a song came on. It wasn't your song, it wasn't anything you had ever talked about together specifically, but it had a feeling in it, a tone, a tempo, something in the way the singer's voice cracked on a particular note that reminded them of a moment with you they hadn't thought about in a long time, and just like that, they were back there, not in the room, not with the people in front of them. Back there with you. They could almost hear your voice, almost see the way you looked at them once, when you thought no one was watching, almost feel the weight of something you said to them on a night they didn't take seriously enough at the time. And this is the part they're still trying to understand, because the version of you they're remembering right now isn't the version they had been telling themselves about for months. The version they had built in their head was simpler, easier to walk away from, easier to be done with. A version of you that fit the story they needed to tell themselves to keep moving forward without you. But that version is starting to fall apart, and the real you, the one they're remembering now, the one that third person reminded them of, is harder to dismiss. The real you was paying attention when they thought no one was. The real you cared in ways they didn't fully appreciate until tonight. The real you said things they didn't take seriously at the time, but are echoing in their head, now like they were spoken yesterday. They're starting to realize something they didn't want to realize. You weren't who they thought you were when they let go. You were more. If this resonates, let it settle in you. You don't have to force anything. Just let it sit. Now, somewhere around this point in the night, your person stepped away from the group. Maybe they went outside for air, maybe they walked to the bathroom, and stood there for a moment longer than necessary, looking at themselves in the mirror. Maybe they just leaned back in their chair and let the conversation move around them without participating. But they pulled away. Even if no one else noticed, they pulled away, and in that small pocket of solitude, the thoughts they had been pushing down all night finally caught up with them. What if I was wrong about her? What if I let go of someone I didn't fully understand? What if the reason I keep thinking about her is because she was the real one, and I just didn't see it then? These weren't dramatic thoughts. They weren't loud. They weren't the kind of thoughts that make a person break down. They were quiet thoughts, the kind that creep in slowly and stay, the kind you can't argue with because they aren't trying to convince you of anything. They're just there, asking questions you can't easily answer. And this is where regret began to settle in. Not the heavy self-pitying kind of regret, not the kind that makes a person spiral, the grounded kind, the kind that just is what it is, the kind that says, I think I missed something important, and I'm only just now starting to see it. Stay with this, because what's coming next matters more than it seems, because regret on its own doesn't change anything. Regret is just a feeling. It can sit in a person for years without leading anywhere. But this regret was different. This regret had a question attached to it, and that question was, what do I do with this now? Your person hasn't answered that question yet. Not tonight. Not while they're sitting there with people around them, and a drink in their hand, and a song playing they can't focus on. They're not going to text you in this moment. They're not going to make some big sweeping gesture. That's not how this works. That's not how real shifts happen. But the question is in them now, and once a question like that gets in, it doesn't leave. It's going to follow them home tonight. It's going to be there when they wake up tomorrow. It's going to be there when they sit alone in their car at a red light next week. It's going to be there in the small ordinary moments when their guard is down and they have nothing to distract them. That's how real change starts. Not with a grand decision, with a question that won't go away. And here's something else. Something quieter. Your person is starting to understand that what they had with you wasn't something they're going to find easily again. They've tried. Maybe they've tried in ways you don't even know about. Conversations with new people that felt flat. Connections that started promising and faded fast. Moments where they thought they were moving on, only to realize they were just moving sideways. And tonight, hearing that third person speak about you, the way they did, your person had to face something they had been avoiding. Maybe the reason they haven't been able to replace what they had with you is because it can't be replaced. Maybe what they had with you was specific to you, specific to the two of you together, and no matter how many other people they meet, that specific thing isn't going to show up again with someone else. That's a hard thing to sit with. That's the kind of realization that changes a person quietly, from the inside out. This is the part they didn't see coming. Now, I want to be careful here, because I'm not telling you this to make you feel some kind of victory. This isn't about them suffering or you being right. This is about something deeper. This is about two people who, somewhere along the way, lost the thread of what they had. And one of them, your person, is just now starting to find that thread again. What they do with it is still uncertain. That part is theirs to figure out. But the thread is in their hand now, and they know it. There's a moment in nights like this. And maybe you've had a night like this yourself, on the other side of it, where everything around you feels normal, and yet something inside you has completely changed. You're still sitting in the same chair. You're still surrounded by the same people. The music is still playing, but you're not the same person you were an hour ago. Something has been quietly rearranged inside you, and you know it, even if you can't explain it yet. That's where your person is right now. And the strange thing is, they're not going to be able to talk about it with anyone in that room. Not really, because the people around them don't know what happened. They don't know that your name landed in your person's chest tonight. Like a stone, dropped into still water. They don't know that the ripples are still moving outward. They don't know that your person is going to carry this home with them, and into the rest of the week, and probably into the rest of the month. This isn't something they can share over another drink. This is something they're going to have to sit with alone. If you've felt this kind of shift in yourself before, you already understand. Now let me say something about timing, because I know you might be wondering about it. You might be wondering why now? Why tonight? Why this particular conversation, with this particular person, in this particular room? Why not last year? Why not next year? Why now? And I don't have a clean spiritual answer for that. I don't want to give you one, because I don't want to dress up something that's already meaningful enough on its own. But I'll say this: there are moments in life when something has to be spoken out loud by someone else, before the person it's about can finally hear it. Your person had been hearing this same truth from their own thoughts for a long time. They had been pushing it down. They had been talking over it. But tonight, when it came out of someone else's mouth, they couldn't push it down anymore. The walls didn't work. The distractions didn't work. The drink didn't work. It got through. And sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes the people we love most can't hear our truth from us directly. They have to hear it through someone else. Not because we didn't say it well, not because we didn't mean it, but because they weren't ready to receive it from us in that moment. And the universe, or life, or whatever you want to call it, has a way of bringing the truth back around when the person is finally ready. That's what tonight was. The truth coming back around, through someone else's voice. At the right time, and here's the part I want you to hold on to gently, without gripping it too tightly. Your person is going to wake up tomorrow morning, and the night is going to feel slightly different than other nights have. Lately. They're going to remember pieces of it. They're going to remember your name being said. They're going to remember the way it landed. They're going to remember the questions that came up in them afterward, and they're not going to be able to fully shake any of it. Some of them might try. Some of them might pour another drink the next night, or distract themselves with work, or throw themselves into something else to avoid sitting with what they felt. But the feeling is in them now. And feelings like this don't leave just because we ignore them. They wait, they settle into the corners of our days. They show up in the quiet moments. They tap us on the shoulder when we least expect it. So even if your person doesn't reach out tomorrow, or the day after, or next week, something is moving in them. Something they didn't plan for. Something they didn't ask for. And it's not going to stop moving until it gets to wherever it's going. You don't have to do anything with this information. You don't have to wait by your phone. You don't have to read into every notification. That's not what this is about. This is about understanding that the silence between you and them isn't as empty as it seems. There's something happening inside it. Something quiet, something real, something that's been a long time coming. Maybe you've been wondering if they ever think about you. Maybe you've been wondering if any of it mattered to them. the way it mattered to you. Maybe you've been wondering if you imagined the depth of what you had together. And I want to gently tell you, you didn't imagine it. They felt it too. They just weren't ready to admit it, even to themselves. But tonight, they had to admit something. Maybe not all of it. Maybe, but a is enough. Because once one piece moves, the rest tends to follow. There's a line from Ecclesiastes that says, "There's a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to keep, and a time to let go, a time for silence, and a time to speak." And I think tonight, for your person was a time when something they had been keeping quiet inside them, finally got spoken. Not by them, but for them. By someone else. In a room they weren't expecting it. That's not a coincidence. That's just how some things work. And the last thing I want to leave you with is this. You don't need to chase them. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to position yourself for whatever might come next. The kind of shift that happened in your person tonight isn't something that runs on your effort, it runs on its own timing. Your job, right now, is just to be where you are. To keep building the life you've been building. To keep showing up for yourself the way you've been learning to. If they come back into a life you've already made beautiful on your own. And if they take longer than you'd like, you're still building something worth coming back to. But here's what I know, the thread is in their hand now. They felt it tonight. They felt you tonight, in a way they hadn't let themselves feel in a long time. And whatever they do with that, whether it takes them a day, or a week or a few months to find their way back to a conversation with you. Something in them has already started moving toward you. You don't have to force anything. You just have to keep being who you are. Because what they're beginning to realize now is something they can't walk away from anymore. Not this time.